Good afternoon to all of you. My name is Eddie Moors. I'm rector of IHE Delft, and I'm very, very happy that I see so many faces, not in 2D, but in 3D. And I think that this is a very, very special occasion in that sense. And I do hope that we will be able to continue having you in life here also in the building. I think that looking at the last couple of days and weeks, I've been visiting students. I've seen some of you to the building, and at least that gave me the special feeling that I always have with IHE. And that is that especially in the restaurants and also in other places, you meet one another and you see all those different nationalities coming together. And I do hope and I do think that that's one of the specific added values of the Institute. And for that you need to meet one another. And I'm quite happy that we can do that again. I think that besides having you here, we could not have everybody that we would have liked here in the building. So I would also very much welcome all the people that are following us online. And I think by that, it's not only the people that you know, like your family, but you do have a quite large number of supporters. And I think with those supporters, it's besides your family, it's also the people that make it possible financially for you to come here, people that allow you to take leave to come here, but also people that support us as an institute throughout the world. I do think that all our alumni all over the world are also supporters of the institute, and they all make it possible to have you here. I think that you're gaining some more supporters, and some of those supporters are also sitting on the front row here. Some of them are also in the room, some of them you will meet later on, and that are the people who are going to lecture you in the coming months. And I think that that's only possible if all those people and yourself are also supported by a lot of people that make it possible to sit in this building, to also supply the food, coffee in the machines, the simple things that are there, people that are cleaning the building, everything that is there. And I hope that you will enjoy it. I know that some of my predecessors always called IHE other name, something like an Institute for Holidays in Europe. I think that would be quite nice if we could do that, but I'm also a little bit afraid that I have to disappoint you a bit there, and that's the fact that by the end you're also always happy that you're at the end. And I know that that's also because it's quite hard work here, and people will try to give you as much knowledge as they can to prepare you also for what you will be doing afterwards. And I think for this opening we have a special program in that sense, and that is that one of our lecturers will give a presentation to you today. And I'm quite happy to also have Yogita Gupta here. Yogita is one, I think, of the lecturers that's special, but I do think that all our lecturers are special. But I will tell you a little bit about Yogita. And Yogita is somebody that I think if you would like to have a sort of a cross-cut of a person that knows a lot, going from, say, north to south, from east to west, but also through all the different disciplines. Yeah, I should say she's the man, but she's the woman in this case that is doing that. And I think I'm quite delighted that Yogita is somebody that, for example, contributed to the COP, the climate change report, that also won the Nobel Peace Prize together with Al Gore. But she did a lot of other things also afterwards. She's engaged in a lot of different journals. She's chief editor of a journal looking at laws and policies and the environment. I know that she's doing quite some other quite interesting work as well. So I'm delighted that we found Yogita winning to give you a presentation here on what you may expect in the times to come. Tujita.
So, good afternoon, everybody. It's wonderful to be here, and it's wonderful to be able to welcome you to Delft and the Netherlands. My journey began like yours. Many, many years ago, well, 1997, I left India with 20 pounds because in those days, government of India would not give you more foreign exchange because there was very limited foreign exchange in India. And leaving India for the United States with 20 pounds in your pocket is really, really frightening. And I'm sure that many of you probably share a similar fear that you don't have that much money in your pocket and you still have to be able to survive in the West. One other important note I want to make before I start is that when you leave home and you come to another country, suddenly a window opens and you start to look at your country from different eyes. You start to look at the world from a different perspective, and you start to wonder whether everything you learned in school, college, in your culture, how much of that is really sound and how much of that is not sound, and how much of that you should reinvigorate because that's actually useful, and how much of that you should discard. So this window that you're going to be going through right now is going to change your life. And today I took a very difficult topic for discussion. And one of the reasons I took this topic is because my academic career began actually at IHE. Years and years ago, we had a professor who used to fly from Italy to the Netherlands to teach water law. And he was getting quite old, and sometimes he used to fall asleep in class. And so the IHE wanted to have a new person to teach water law. And I was just out of law school, so I was asked if I would go and have dinner with this gentleman and he would interview me for the job. Well, I didn't know a single answer because I had never studied water law. But luckily the next morning he phoned the institute and said, I found the perfect person for the job. And so I have been with IHE now for more than 32 years, I think, on a one-day-a-week basis. In the beginning it was as a freelancer. But basically, today's topic is not about win-win. It's about tackling tough trade-offs while leaving no one behind. And you probably know that in the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, have you heard of it? Yes. Okay, so you probably know that in the SDGs, a key statement is that we should leave no one behind. Now, what are we talking about? If you look at the last 50 years and you look at the progress that has been made, it's dramatic. Trade has grown by 10 times, the economy has grown by 5 times, and the world population has only doubled relative to the rest. Average prosperity has doubled, but that does not mean that everyone is better off. So we have about 1.3 billion people who are still poor, and about half the world's population lives on less than $5.50 per day. And in the same 50 years, we have managed to really mess up our planet. So let me talk a little bit about this unhealthy planet in which we are currently living. If you look at disease, and if you're looking at pre-COVID, then 25% of all disease and health impacts have been caused by environmental changes. This includes not only air pollution, land degradation, water pollution, unhealthy oceans, and loss of biodiversity. But it also tells us that we should think about the people who get displaced because of an extreme weather event. And I'll just give you one example. I mean, I'm sure you've all heard that climate change is now emergency status, yes? And we have crossed probably the biodiversity boundary, the planetary boundary, right? Why is biodiversity important? What has it got to do with food? Did anybody ever tell you about the birds and the bees? Bees? Yeah. Food? Okay. All right. So if the bees die because of pesticides, then there's a real problem which affects your food production. So that's one of the small elements in relation to biodiversity and agriculture worldwide. But you can have all kinds of other problems, and today 9 million people die annually because of different types of air pollution, and 3.2 billion people worldwide are affected by land degradation. And if you look at life on this earth, then what you can see is that the humans on the extreme left bowl and the animals we eat, for those of us who are non-vegetarian, together that makes up about 95% of the weight of all creatures on earth, including ants and elephants. And that small little ball on the extreme right is what is left for other species, the species that we do not eat, the species that we do not have as pets, and ourselves. So that really means that we have taken away a lot of land from nature. Having said that, let's look at the resources we have on earth. If you look at land and water, it's more or less a straight line. And so basically what happens is that when the population goes up or the demand goes up, we're all fighting over the same land and water, and as a consequence of that, the price of land and the price of water is going up, and it's becoming more and more a situation where the poor are no longer able to afford their lands or afford water. And that graph that I showed you just now is not just true for land and water, it's also true for things like minerals, metals, and also when we're talking about climate change, a big problem is that even though we have more than enough fossil fuels, we should leave around 80% underground if we want to live within a 1.5 to 2 degree centigrade world. Now let's come a little bit to the politics of decision making. Why is it so difficult to make decisions at the global level? In this particular graph, what you see is the population ranging from privileged in the left, that's all of us in this room today, and the marginalized on the right. And on the y-axis, you see the contribution to the drivers and pressures of ecological problems. And what you basically see is that the richer you are, the more you pollute. And the poorer you are, the more you don't pollute. And this is not because I eat more breakfast than you. I eat the same number of breakfasts. Probably I even eat less than you guys. At least I try not to eat as much as you guys, maybe. But the point is that I have a pension. I have savings. And the money in my pension and my savings is being invested worldwide. And don't underestimate how big Western pension funds are. So basically, what we are finding is that the contribution of the rich is significantly higher than the contribution of the poor, whether we're talking about the Netherlands, or we are talking about rich countries and poor countries, or we are talking about the rich and poor in poor countries. Sorry, I went backwards. But if you now have the same graph and you look at vulnerability, and I'm not talking about vulnerability in terms of money, I'm talking about vulnerability in terms of your existence, your life, then you see that the graph goes the other way. You'll see that the poorer countries and the poorer people are the ones that are more vulnerable to the impacts of land degradation, loss of fisheries, loss of biodiversity, climate change, etc. Whereas the privileged people like me, we can cope because we have the resources to be able to, because we have the resources to be able to perhaps adapt or move out. And so, for example, I'll just give you a little bit of numbers over here. Low-income countries are losing 5% of their GDP to impacts of climate change. Household air pollution causes 2.6 to 4.4 million deaths every year, mainly amongst women and children, and mostly amongst the poorer communities, and so on. I mean, I can give you all kinds of statistics to demonstrate this. And so the problem is that those who cause the ecological damage are not necessarily those who will suffer. And therefore, there is very little motivation from those of us who cause the problem to actually try to solve the problem. That's one of the problems. Another problem is that many people see the rich countries as developed countries, as something to aim for, that all countries should end up looking somehow like New York or Washington or Paris or London, that they should be having a very high GDP before they start thinking about improving on poverty levels, reducing inequality or environmental issues. So poorer countries also take sometimes a slightly complicated perspective on what should be done next. And to add to this, we have the fatal combination of news and fake news. We have media and we have social media. And this ends up confusing people. So what happens is that in this kind of combination of politics, especially where in democracies our presidents and prime ministers only get elected for a period of 4 to 5 years, you find that everybody wants to focus on win-win solutions. Small wins, nudges. They want to just nudge everybody a little bit so that we can solve the problem. My fear is if we do that, we will take a symptomatic approach to the problem. We will not deal with the systemic aspects. We will be incremental, not structural. We will use creative ambiguity rather than clarity in solving problems. We will want small governments so that we can do what we like because freedom of individuals and companies is valued in neoliberal capitalism. And we will encourage public-private partnerships, but that can be sometimes problematic. And of course, we will focus on pro-poor policy. But does pro-poor policy address the issue of tax injustice? Do we not actually need a much stronger strategy to deal with how rich people live, how rich companies work, tax evasion, tax avoidance? So my strategy and my hypothesis is that very often the emphasis on pro-poor policy hides a pro-rich strategy. So the point is that if we focus only on win-win and easy wins, will we leave the big problems aside? And therefore, will we actually not be able to take everybody along in our development strategy? So I'll just give you a couple of examples and then I will wind up. Let's just take climate change. You've all heard of climate change. You know a lot about climate change. But if you look at the fossil fuel enterprise, that's coal, gas, oil, plus everybody who uses transport that depends on coal, gas, oil, plus every house that depends on coal, gas, oil, if you just add it all up, it is between $12 trillion to $300 trillion depending on what you add. Do you know what the GDP was in 2018 or 19, just before COVID? What was the world GDP? Nobody?
20 trillion?
No, 86 trillion. Okay, so 20 trillion is a bit on the smaller lines, but anyway, $86 trillion. So if you see that a fossil fuel enterprise over the next period of time that is coming up is actually worth $300 trillion, you can understand why nobody in this fossil fuel industry actually wants to do something about it. And so the question is going to be, if we just talk about phasing out fossil fuel subsidies, will that make a difference? I don't think so. And what we are seeing in terms of north-south and rich-poor aspects is that the bulk of the remaining fossil fuels are in the global south. So if we want to actually address and achieve 1.5 to 2 degrees, we are asking the global south to make the biggest sacrifices in relation to fossil fuels. In the meanwhile, those of us who have shares in fossil fuels, we are selling these shares. And who's buying it? Global South investors. And not only that, our governments in many of the rich countries, but also in China, in South Korea, in India, they are also investing their government money in fossil fuel and investments in other developing countries. And these are mostly loans, so they have to be paid back if these countries don't actually use these fossil fuels. So there's a huge price to pay. And the question is, what should we actually do? Should we write off our shares or should we divest? Should we sell it and make somebody else a vested interest? Now let me come to biodiversity loss. This was a debate we had last night with a couple of people from biodiversity studies. And basically the idea from the biodiversity community is we need to take land back from people and give it back to nature. Some are calling for half earth. So then the question was, okay, do we give half of the Netherlands back to nature? And the answer of the colleague was, but if you give half of the Netherlands back to nature, assuming that was possible, if you give it back to nature, the nature in the Netherlands is not worth that much. So actually you would have to take more than half the earth back to be able to get the necessary half earth results. And so essentially what they came back and said to me, what we need to do is to go to India and take half the earth there, because India is rich in biodiversity, or Pakistan, or Nepal, or Brazil, so, or the Congo. So essentially, this basically means that if you want to solve the biodiversity problem, there will be new justice issues that come up. How are we going to deal with these? And so to come to my last slide, for a long time, all of us have been focusing on increasing GDP, increasing income. The recent report of Lord Dasgupta, who has just published a report this year for the British government, basically concludes what we all knew for a very long time, which is that GDP is a very bad indicator of a healthy society. It does not take into account depreciation of the environment. It does not actually account for poverty. It does not look at how many people are sick. It just looks at how many people go to doctors, and then if you all fall sick and you all go to doctors, the GDP goes up. So it doesn't really actually represent what we want to do. And so the idea that developing countries should become like developed is something that in the group that I'm leading at the University of Amsterdam, we are trying to question those things. We think that we have around 10 years time to get nature back into some kind of a situation that it will support farmers, support local people. And that basically means that each country has to find its own individual pathway to development. And that has to be both inclusive of the poorest, it has to be inclusive of environment, it has to perhaps limit the overuse of nature by the rich, whether it is in India, whether it is here in the Netherlands, or in any other country in the world, and we have to find our unique challenge for our countries. And that's my assignment for you all. That is, can you figure out how your country can become happier, healthier, and have much better well-being for all in the next 10 years without falling into the trap of trying to focus only on increasing GDP for everybody? And with that, I hope a window opens and that your thoughts are challenged. And I'm not saying you should not look for small win-wins. You should, because that's always practical and useful. But don't forget the big trade-offs. Thank you.
Let me see how I do this. Thank you, Jojita. I think that was a very inspiring talk, and I think all of you also know that next week the COP26 will start in Glasgow, which is one of the issues that Jojita spoke about. And I think that together we are all quite interested to know what the outcome will be. And I think that Jojita pointed out that we should not only wait on what's coming out there, but that you also can maybe contribute yourself. And I think that that's an invitation. And to strengthen that invitation to you, I would like to introduce you to the next speaker. But before I do that, I would also like to say something that you will achieve after you're finished here, and that is that you will become a member of the IHE family, of the alumni family that we have here. And that alumni family is distributed throughout the world. And I think that there are some quite inspiring people that are there, that were also sitting in the chairs that you are sitting in now, but have managed to go into another position. Sometimes you will see that that position is a political one, where you can make decisions. Sometimes it's also a position that has to do with, for example, working in an NGO. Sometimes it can also be something that's really personal leadership, where you take the lead in your own community. So there are different ways of doing that. Today I have the honor to introduce you to one of our alumni. She's now working in the Republic of Tanzania. Her name is Nadifa Kemi Kimba. Unfortunately, she could not come here because of all the travel issues that we have in the moment.
Dear brothers and sisters, IHE community members, greetings from Tanzania. I'm Engineer Nadhifa Kemikimba. I was at IHE in the batch of 2004 to 2006. I pursued masters in water management, specialized in water quality management. At the onset, I'm very grateful, and I wish to extend my sincere gratitude to the Directorate and administration members of IHE Delft for valuing me to be the speaker at the opening of the academic year 21-22. The relation between the United Republic of Tanzania and IHE Delft ways back early 1980s, when the first batches had an opportunity to study at this institute. Currently, the number of Tanzanians studying at IHE is big, and it keeps growing. The IHE community in Tanzania is among the dependable human resources. We hold significant positions in the government, private sector, academia, and civil society organizations. One of the evidence is the Permanent Secretary for Ministry of Water, Engineer Anton Sanga, and myself are products of IHE. There are a number of directors, there are many others directors and managers working with sectors of water, energy, mineral, environment, and the private sector. Knowledge and skills acquired from IHE provide multiple ways of addressing challenges. IHE nurtures confident leaders and experts in water and other related sectors. I must admit that the merits from IHE established the reasons for me to be appointed as the Director for Water Quality Management in the country, entrusted to lead the department responsible for ascertaining the quality of water at the sources, from the sources to the consumer. Later on, in 2018, I became the Director for the Department of Water Supply and Sanitation. From the level of Director, then in 2020, I was appointed to be Deputy Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Water. That's the impact of IHE. It brightens the future of whoever studied hard and determined at this institute. Leadership in water sector means managing public and private resources that are related to water management, water supply and sanitation. We manage people, we manage funds and public resources, including time. Many projects in the water sector are worth millions of funds. Positive results are expected from a good manager. Dear brothers and sisters, the knowledge gained from IHE is unique. I must emphasize this. IHE is unique in capacity development in the area of water and related sciences. It shapes people and personality, and increasingly, it transforms the thinking. It provides creativity, multitasking, innovation, and problem solving in specific context. For the new students at IHE in this academic year, you are at the right place. I can guarantee you, take your studies seriously so that before receiving your certificates, you will be different from the way you are now. Dear brothers and sisters, IHE brings the world to this small campus. It also connects everyone to the world. In a very short time, you will have a global network. Make use of that to learn and solve world water problems. As you keep the pace of learning, remember the world is waiting for you. towards implementation of Sustainable Development Goals, which were adopted by the United Nations in 2015 as a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that by 2030, all people enjoy peace and prosperity. I'm repeating. As you keep the pace of learning, remember the world is waiting for you. Towards implementation of Sustainable Development Goals, which were adopted by the United Nations in 2015 as a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that by 2030, all people enjoy peace and prosperity. Goal number 6 is the center for all goals. To date, the world is not very certain if by 2030, all people in the world will have access to clean, safe, and reliable water and sanitation services. You are part of the team to envisage strategies to attain all SDGs. 9 years to come and ensure no one is left behind. Dear brothers and sisters, at IHE, you'll learn many things, very wide as well as specific. In the 18-month stay at IHE, many world case studies will be introduced to you. More important, do not copy and paste from Asia to Latin America or from Africa to Europe without critical analysis. Dear brothers and sisters, some areas where the world still has serious challenges include inadequate sanitation services and low resilience of communities to withstand impacts of climate change. These are real problems, but with many opportunities which have to be grabbed by you. With expanded knowledge, you are in a better position to bring positive solution to occurring problems. Is that not exciting? Distinguished colleagues, allow me to conclude by thanking the IHE Delft administration for this favored moment to address the IHE community in Delft, the Netherlands, and globally, and in a special way, the new students. I wish you fruitful and successful studies. Keep safe. I reiterate that the world is eagerly waiting for you to join efforts in solving water and sanitation and all related interventions locally and globally. To remind you, the world is living with COVID-19 pandemic. You have to adhere to all precautions as the disease has no cure yet, and its spread is life-threatening. Lastly, dear brothers and sisters, on behalf of IHE alumni, we welcome you at IHE alumni community in 2023. May God bless you on this endeavor. Thank you for your kind attention.
With that, I would like to thank Your Excellency Nadifa Kemikemba for, I think, the inspiring words. I do hope that many of you will follow her footsteps here. And like she said, she's at present the Deputy Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Water Resources in the United Republic of Tanzania. And I think that with those two speakers, they also combine actually what we like to offer you, that you can take with you, but also to show you where you can go. And I think it's also an open invitation and a question to all of you, because there's also an urgent need for you that you not only get this knowledge, but that you apply the knowledge as well to solve some problems. That there are also some discussions how to do that. I think that Judita also made it very clear. And also there we need new ideas and we need new ways on how we can deal with that. So I wish you all a very good stay here, and I give the floor back to Annick, who's much better than I am in following the agenda.
Thank you, Professor Morse. I now invite three lovely ladies on stage who will dance for us. Salija from Nepal, Ayn from India, and Maria from Pakistan, who will dance for us. Ladies, please take place. Thank you, ladies, for this wonderful, happy entertainment. I now invite to the stage the chair from the Student Association Board, Ms. Shireen El-Wattar from Egypt.
Hi guys, how are you? I've seen you before on Zoom and on Skype for Business, but it's good to be here in person. Well, you know that my name is Shireen El-Wattar. I'm here to represent the Student Association Board. I'm also representing my friends and colleagues, Khaled, Ain, and Raoul. And I wrote my speech in a paper, so excuse that I will keep looking down. But at the beginning, I would like you all to take a moment and to really think about where you are in this moment. You're now sitting on a chair in IHE Delft in the Netherlands. You've worked really hard to be here. And I'm sure that you've had your fair share of sacrifices to sit on this chair today. And I was here a year ago, not here, but in my room because of COVID. But I had a lot of mixed feelings, and I think I've talked to you about it. The mixed feelings of being scared, intimidated, but also very excited that I'm finally here. And with the way the months has passed, these feelings started changing, and I started realizing that they were there because it was a new beginning for me. And new beginnings are supposed to be scary, and they're supposed to be intimidating too. And when you accept that, you realize that you are in a really good place. And following to what I'm saying, I need to turn the page. But I believe that if we share one thing together, all of us, and the senior batch, it is our drive to use academic education so that we would be water experts, to train ourselves to be water professionals that would be able to tackle the issues of water that we see. And I think we all know, if we are here, that we are very, very needed. And this drive will take you through this journey. It's your main fuel. The journey where you start as someone, and you will graduate as someone totally different. You will have specific priorities, and this journey will just make you reprioritize. You will have certain beliefs and ideals, but they will completely change. And the importance of this is because these things are what drives your intention. And each of us have an intention. And I actually used this when I was applying as the president a couple of months ago, but it's because I really believe in the power of all of our intentions. I want to tell you as I'm standing here that you need to realize the gift that you have to be in a water institute on top of the world, where you literally see a small scale of the world every single day. This gift is so valuable because with the way your thoughts will change, your intentions will be influenced. And these intentions are there to change the world. And by such, I would like to share with you a quote that is dear to my heart, and I read it every time I feel like the year is never ending. Everything changes with intention. Do not be discouraged by the brokenness of the world. All things break, and all things can be mended. Not with time, as they say. Not at all. It is by intention. And I'm here to tell you that it is your intention, every one of you. And as I, among others, have utilized and mobilized my intention during this year to be closer to the version I want to be, all of you can mobilize your intention to accomplish all your goals and to fix all these problems and to not feel their weight pushing your shoulders down to the ground, because our intentions will be giving us the hope to move forward. And luckily enough, today is your official day one of that journey. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie, for those heartwarming words. Now I invite a group of Sudanese senior students, Mohammed and friends, for on stage to give a performance.
watchers from all around the world. We dedicate this song to our Sudanese people on the memory of our first revolution to achieve democracy, peace, and justice. It's a song written for the workers and laborers as an expression for their role in the renaissance of the countries and nation. I hope you will enjoy it. Thank you so much.
الناس المغفولين الناس البال مغطى الساس المبيوعين يدراك الناس القصر الناس المغفولين الناس البال مغطى والساس المبيوعين يدراك قدم الرسمان يا ضياعات يا زين الفرح الأمريكان والربح ديار الدين ولو كان قصدي في ذاتك ناس تانيين الناس معايا يجهد السر يوم حيبين لو كان قصدي في ذاتك ناس تانيين الناس معايا يجهد السر يوم حيبين يا عادي كما العمان والريح الحين بحين يا صاحي كما الأمان بعيون المحرومين ماشيين في السكة نمت من سردك للجايين ماشيين في السكة نمت من سردك للجايين شايفينك ماشي كسر وردية يا قاسم أمين شايفينك ماشي كسر وردية يا قاسم أمين ماشيين في السكة نمت من سردك للجايين ماشيين في السكة نمت من سردك للجايين شايفينك ماشي كسر وردية يا قاسم أمين شايفينك ماشي كسر وردية يا قاسم أمين وردية يا قاسم أمين وردية يا قاسم أمين. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much. I would now like to invite our Vice Rector, Professor Charlotte de Fraiture, on stage.
Thank you. I hope you looked very well, and this is your example for next year. I expect that some of you will be on stage next year in the opening ceremony, so I'm looking forward to that already. Welcome. My name is Charlotte de Fraiture. I'm the Vice Rector at Academic Affairs here, and it's a real pleasure to be here in person, to see you in person. So I would like to say a few words on the type of education you will find here. So we already heard from different speakers today that we are dealing with difficult, complex problems, trade-offs. There's winners, there's losers. There is a sense of urgency. You cannot wait until you know everything, because I think there's urgent problems that we have to deal with. We're dealing with conflicting interests. So the main message is you cannot do it alone. You cannot tackle the world's water problems on your own. You need all disciplines. And so what does that mean for our education? Our education here is multi and interdisciplinary. So among our IHE staff and students, we have a lot of disciplines. And there's a lot of diversity also in cultural and nationalities. So I would like to invite you, I would like to urge you to make use of that and not just stick to your own discipline and your own specialization. There's plenty of webinars, there's plenty of elective modules, and I would like to invite you, to urge you to choose outside of your own discipline. Of course, the electives and the webinars when possible, of course, because that you will learn something new. There's very different perspectives on the water problems. I mean, an ecologist thinks different than an engineer. And that person probably has a very different perspective on water, like a biologist, chemist, social scientist, etc. So I invite you to look around and to also take courses and webinars, etc., outside of your own discipline to find these multiple perspectives on water. Our education is also stressing active learning. So that means learning from your own experiences. And so apply, most of you have working experience here when you come to study here. So apply those theories that you will learn to your own professional practices. And also apply your new research skills to the problems that you know from your professional practice. Learn from classmates and who come with different situations, different experiences, etc. And so, for example, while working on different assignments, it's a great opportunity to learn from each other and gain a different perspective on water problems. Having said that, also embrace diversity, right? You're a very diverse group of MSc participants. Like, I think you are from 165 new students from 54, and I'm looking here, yes, I see nodding, 54 countries. So that's an enormous diversity. And again, a little later, another group of students of the joint degrees will join, and another 12 countries, nationalities will be represented here. So I'm asking you and urging you to not stick to the people from your own country. Right? It's very tempting, right, to stick together and you speak the same language, you have the same culture, and of course that's very important when you're settling in a foreign country. But quite often, quite soon, I think you have to get out of your own comfort zone and get to learn and get friends from different countries, from different disciplines. Make friends with those from other countries and other disciplines. Because an international network of water professionals is one of the most precious assets that you can gain from your time here in IHE. And I think we already heard it also from the alumni, alumna, I should say, from Tanzania. Lastly, our education is not only about knowledge transfer, but also learning skills. And skills that could be research skills, presentation skills, critical reading, academic writing, working in multidisciplinary groups. But also it includes leadership skills, and I've heard already a few people talking about that. And you might think of leaders that are the bosses, the managers who tell you what to do, but that's not the kind of leadership that I'm referring to. Actually, I'm referring to the type of leadership that is the transformational leadership that is needed to address complex water issues. Showing leadership means setting directions and goals for yourself and for your organization. Showing leadership means creating a shared vision and also being a source of inspiration to implement that vision. Leadership means working together towards achieving that shared vision and motivate and inspire others. We are a very small institute, and you will probably have the opportunity to get to know all your fellow students, but also the staff and other people working around visiting IHE Delft. I'm sincerely hoping that you will gain a lot during your time here at IHE Delft. And in terms, of course, in knowledge, skills, networks, inspiration, and looking at the water challenges ahead, as was very nicely described by Joita, not just water challenges, but global challenges. I think we indeed need you, and we need inspired, motivated, bright water professionals. Finally, to get you all here to Delft, to start your education here, that took a lot of hard work and preparation. So there was the admission process, of course, there was the tickets, there was the visa, the housing. You all received this nice box. I saw all these boxes standing there with all food, peanut butter I even saw in there, right? So I hope you already tasted the peanut butter there. But also the vaccination, the test, and all kind of other things that need to be arranged. So I would like to, and also Meet the Dutch, of course. I think you maybe already meet a few people from Meet the Dutch, and otherwise you will be soon. So I would like to give a very big thank you to all of people working behind the scenes to make this possible, and to be here finally in person again, and to welcome you all here. So let me conclude by wishing you a wonderful learning experience at IHE. Thank you.